have to believe me. I mean, it's up on the screen, so hopefully you can trust me that I'm not going to refresh this window at all. And up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start changing the data. So first thing I'm going to do is add a new question. So it's just JSON. So I'm adding a new JSON document. I'm going to add a new question, which is something I get asked a lot. And then I'm going to give it a score of, say, 1. It's not a very popular question. So I'm going to insert that. So what's going to happen, fingers crossed, on the left, I'm going to get the response back from inserting this document. It's going to say, you've inserted one thing, this is it, it'll generate me like a primary key, it'll tell me what the key is. But on the right-hand side, you can see that it says here, we're listening for events. So what should happen over on the right-hand side is that we get one of these real-time kind of update events from our change sheet, telling us that we got a new document, this is what it is, and so on. So if I do this, so here's our response saying, we've inserted this one thing, this is its ID. It's a little bit small, can everybody read that? Yeah? And on the right-hand side, we've got our change sheet event says we've got this new value, this is our new question with its ID, and there was no old value, so we know that it was an insert. If I just copy that ID, so I can now do a query on the left-hand side. He says, take the insert out. You do a query on the left-hand side, and that's going to pull back the thing we just inserted. So this shouldn't have happened because I left the insert in before, so I've kind of ruined my demo. But you can see as many times as I do this get query, nothing happens on the right hand side because no data is changed. But if I was to say update this record, set the score to be 10 because this is a much more popular question now. You can see we get the thing on the left that says, okay, you've replaced one record, but on the right we've got a new change sheet event that says you've updated this question from a score of 1 to a score of 10. And then just for completeness, I can delete it, and we get our response on the left and our new event on the right saying this. So that was my first demo. That was RethinkDB admin, that was change sheets in action. Yeah, I hope you like it as much as I do. So now, before we look at a bit of code, we should probably have a quick look at Node and why we think Node is a good fit for building these kind of things. So for anyone who doesn't know, Node is a JavaScript runtime. This means that we can use it to build server-side apps in JavaScript, which I think it's relatively new still, but it's a few years, it's pretty popular now, it's a few years into it. It's built on Google's V8 engine, which is what powers JavaScript in the Chrome browser. It's also used to power certain aspects of MongoDB, CouchDB, and that kind of thing. It's like a more performant version of JavaScript. It has a non-blocking I/O model. It's event-driven, which means that it uses the like asynchronous callbacks and the event loop just to kind of keep things moving along. And this approach means that Node can run in a single thread, and or not can run in a single thread. It does run in a single thread, and this might seem a little bit inefficient. If you're wanting to build a real-time application that has hundreds of users all connected all at the same time, all doing things at the same time, then you might think, single-threaded is maybe a bit restrictive or a bit inefficient. But actually, it's quite the opposite. This is one of the reasons that Node is so good for building these kind of things. Running in a single thread means that only one bit of your code can be executed at any one time. And this isn't one bit of code per user or one bit of code per page or per feature. This is one bit of code through your whole application. But the way that Node handles I/O operations, such as reading from disk or making network requests and that kind of thing, the way it handles those I/O operations is a bit different in that it handles them asynchronously. So what that means is that at the point where Node needs to do something like that, so like it needs to send something down a socket or make a HTTP request, it'll do this in the background, and it's actually doing it in another thread. So Node is actually using multiple threads. It just kind of abstracts that away from you, so you don't have to worry about the kind of complexities of building multi-threaded applications. And while it's doing that, it just moves on to whatever the next task at hand is, the next thing on the event list. And once your network request or whatever is complete, it just returns the result of that plus your callback function to the event loop, and then that just gets executed in the next available opportunity. And this means that Node is really lightweight and really efficient when dealing with lots of I/O requests, or like lots of network requests. And because of that, it's great for dealing with a large amount of concurrent users. It's really efficient at that kind of thing. And that's obviously exactly what they're going for if you're building real-time apps. It also means that it's really great for scaling out your app, because in the past, if you wanted more power, if you had more users than you can handle, you would just buy a bigger server. That's kind of what happened. And that's called, I would get this wrong, vertical scaling. But nowadays we do what's called horizontal scaling, where you start off with a small server, and if you need more power, you buy more small servers, and you just kind of scale out that way, and that's called horizontal scaling. So Node, because it's so efficient and so lightweight, it lets you build relatively powerful apps on pretty small hardware, and then you can scale out. So that's quite good. The downside to this whole thing is that if any of your code is what we would call blocking, then everything in your app is going to suffer. Blocking code is anything that isn't done asynchronously and takes a little bit of time. So a bit of a contrived example would be like a giant for loop. If one of your users does something that triggers a for loop that takes 10 seconds to execute, for example, then nothing else in your whole application is going to run until that loop's finished. And obviously that's bad. So and this isn't just for real-time apps, this is for anything built in JavaScript. There's kind of a golden rule, which is to never block it. That's, you really want to avoid it. So, we've talked about real-time apps and why we might want to build them, why they're a bit tricky to build sometimes. We talked about Rethink and Node and why they're good for building real-time apps. We want to probably look at some code. So, npm install RethinkDB will get you the official RethinkDB package for Node. And the first step would be just to require that library, just like any other library. Very straightforward. The next thing to do would be to connect to the database. So my example here is just going to connect to the test database on localhost, which is kind of the default thing. But obviously you can pass it some options and whatever to say, I want to use this server and this database and so on. But assuming everything's fine, you're going to get returned this connection object here. And that's kind of a reference to our permanent connection that we talked about earlier. So the next thing to do is build your query. So here's our query. You can see it looks just kind of like the queries that were on the slide before. There's queries that were in the little demo before. And the only addition, so this is kind of answering your question about callbacks and things. The only addition is that we have to call this run method at the end to say we want to run our query. We pass that our connection that we create when we connect it to the database. And then again, assuming everything has gone fine, we get our cursor in the callback. So once you've got your cursor, then you can decide what you want to do. Here, in this example, I'm just saying get me all of my results in an array. So I get my results in the callback there. I'm closing the connection because we're kind of done with this now. You don't want to leave a connection hanging around that you're not going to use anymore, because that's just a waste of resources. But then whatever you want to do with your results, you can do. So you can just log them out. Change feeds work in a very similar way. So you require the library, the database, get your connection object, build your query. Remember to add the changes method, because like we said before, it's just a query like any other query. We run it in exactly the same way with the run method, pass it a connection, get a cursor back in our callback. And then we're just saying, for every event that comes into our cursor, every change feed update that comes into our cursor, do something with it. And here I'm just logging it out, but obviously you can do whatever. So So that's kind of it for doing queries and things. It's very simple, and it just takes a little bit of time to get used to the kind of writing your queries in JavaScript thing, but after a while it becomes quite intuitive. We've talked about WebSockets a little bit. I just want to quickly cover them again. So like I said before, WebSockets are a permanent connection between your browser and your application, and you can use that to push data in either direction. If you've not really used WebSockets before and you want to, or even if you haven't actually, if you want to start building something using WebSockets to kind of do this kind of thing, then I would recommend using something like Socket.io. Socket.io is like a wrapper around WebSockets, which means that it covers all of the kind of discrepancies between different browsers and the different versions of the different browsers and the whole kind of mobile versus desktop thing. It just kind of takes care of all of that for you. Gives you a nice little framework to help you create, like to send notifications, receive notifications, and that kind of thing. It just makes it much easier. Really. I would totally recommend it. npm install Socket.io will get you that. And it's nice and easy to use. So this is kind of the same change feed example we had from before. But all we're doing here is, whenever an event comes into our cursor to say, something's happened, we do a little bit of logic. We determine that this is a new event, this is an inserted document, and then we can just emit it using Socket.io. So we have like a custom event name, I cleverly come from you, and I'm sending it my data. And then on the client side, you just include the library, connect to the server, and then listen for this event. And then whenever the new event is triggered, you get the data that's sent along with it, and you use it to update it. So that's WebSockets. So how does all this go together? We've talked about all the different kind of bits, and if you want to build something where you have a system that you can get your data from your database into your application, from your application to your users, kind of how do you do that? RethinkDB only gets you so far. It solves the problem of getting the changes to your data into your application in real time, and it solves the problem of doing that at scale as well, which is obviously a big problem to solve. But what it doesn't do is get it to the front end, and that's what you use WebSockets for. So I just want to to wrap up, I just want to quickly go through the kind of approach you should take. If you're trying to build this kind of thing, what's the kind of approach you should take to updating your users and all that. So here's our app. It does nothing in particular, it just does something. We scaled it out to have 5 servers because we want to scale it out and make it reliable and all that kind of thing. Our first user comes along, hits the home page, and asks for all of the currently available data. And we pull this from the database and we render on the front end. Nice and simple. So another user comes along and posts some new data to the application, and we store that in the database. So at this point, we're not doing anything too clever. Rethink is just being used as a very basic database. We've read some data, we've read some data, no particular cleverness going on there. Also at this point, we've not updated any of these front ends, not even from the user who sent us the new data. You could argue that, well, this user, if you imagine a Facebook post, this user has all of the content available to them, they could just render on their front end like straight away, because why not? They have the data. But we don't want to do that. That's a bad thing to do. We'll see what happens. The next thing that happens is an event gets pushed from the database to a change feed, to the change feed in a way that signals that we've got this new record. And this event is going to go to all instances of our application, so all of our servers that are querying with this particular change feed. And then, so all of our servers now have this event. They have this bit of data that says, we have a new row, and this is the data that makes up that row. And then these servers can emit this new data to all of their connected users using WebSockets, or Socket.io. So all of your users are going to receive this data, and then they can use that to update whatever's in their browser in whatever way you want. And this means that you have a very consistent way to update all of your front ends. And every time you update something, it's always based on exactly what is in the database. You're not making any screens at once. So this makes your app very data driven, and it should help you keep everybody in sync. We were just talking about why wouldn't you update this guy's front end from the data that you provided, and what happens if that didn't actually make it to the database? What happens if you decided to update everybody once they hit the application, but then when you tried to write it to the database there was some kind of network failure or something like that? Then you might update people, but then when they refresh their screen, that data doesn't exist anymore, so that's not there anymore. And that's a bad experience. So you don't want to do that. You only want to update people when this data is actually in the database. And this method also combines both what we were talking about right at the beginning, both the puller method. So on first load, you're saying, I'm asking you for this particular data, tell me about what data you have. But then after that, you're pushing any new data to your users, which is what we were aiming for. So obviously, just to summarize, pulling databases is bad. You shouldn't do that. It's not very efficient. And a much better way to do it is to push data to your users, and that is much more efficient. If you are going to do that, it's much easier to do that if you have a single source of data, especially if you're trying to build this to scale. And RethinkDB lets you do that by allowing you to push changes to your data straight from the database to your application. Rethink is open source, it's totally free. If you want to just download it and have a go, RethinkDB.com. If you do want to have something that's a bit more managed, then you can get hosted RethinkDB from compose.com. You get 30 days for free to kind of mess around with. You get like a fully managed cluster and all that kind of thing. And then finally, typically at the end of like a talk like this, there would be a bit of a Q&A session. So I tried to put together a quick demo app that's going to allow you to ask me some questions. So you should be able to point your smartphone to this URL, and then it's kind of like a very primitive real-time Reddit kind of thing. You should be able to ask a question, vote on the questions you want to ask, and you want me to answer, and so on. I might have to restart it. So I'm restarting it now just to make sure that it will work.
Is there Wi-Fi here?
Sorry?
Is there Wi-Fi here?
There is a Wi-Fi here. I think it's Evo guest with the exclamation mark, and then Evolution 1234 with a capital E. I'm going to just switch to my demo. The URL is still there. This is the part that sometimes doesn't work. The heralds are doing fine. So it might be just, so it's just restarted at the moment, so that should be back in. So in theory, you should be able to click the ask a question button in the top right corner. Sorry? Try and restart it. Oh, actually, is it on an iPhone? Oh, okay, I've never tried it. I've never seen it myself. So everybody's interested in that.